Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a highly complex and absolutely devastating event, the Maldives shark cave tragedy. At first glance, this looked like a simple, tragic mystery of divers going missing. But as the recovery operation concluded and new evidence surfaced, the narrative drastically shifted. We're going to deconstruct exactly what the latest investigations reveal. We'll look at the actual layout of the cave, the kind of confusing permissions involved, and the terrifying sequence of events that trapped 5 Italian divers and claimed the life of a Maldivian rescuer.
There's a chilling line in the investigation reports that really stands out. It says it is a story about a cave that may have turned the exit itself into the trap. And honestly, that captures exactly why we're looking so closely at this today. This wasn't just your standard deep dive where someone ran out of air in the open ocean. As you're about to see, the physical structure of the environment they entered turned a difficult situation into a highly lethal one.
Part 1. Anatomy of a disaster. Context versus reality. Let's get into it. 30 meters. To put that into perspective, that is the strict, normal, recreational diving limit in the Maldives. Going anything beyond that requires highly specialized training, specialized equipment, and serious planning. The entrance to the shark cave alone sits between 50 and 60 meters down. So they were drastically beyond the boundaries of standard recreational diving before they even crossed the threshold of the cave.
Now I want you to imagine the difference between these two worlds. A normal Maldivian reef dive features bright sunlight, open ocean above you, and an easy, direct path straight up to the surface if something goes wrong. But the shark cave dive, we're talking extreme depth, near zero visibility, and most importantly, an overhead ceiling. You can't just swim up. You are inside a solid physical structure. The surface simply doesn't matter unless you can first navigate your way back to the exit.
So, that brings us to part 2, the permit mystery. Who is actually down there?
Well, what's really interesting here is the gap in official planning. The group had official permission for a research expedition to study soft corals, but officials were never informed they were exploring a deep underwater cave. Furthermore, look at the experience levels of the team. You've got Monica Montefalconei, a 51-year-old ecology professor who was officially on the permit. But then you have her daughter, Georgia, a biomedical engineering student, and Federico Gualtieri, a recent graduate. The University of Genoa later stated both of them were not actually part of the official scientific mission. They also had Gianluca Benedetti, a local instructor. So this incredibly dangerous 60-meter overhead cave dive was undertaken by a mixed group where several members were entirely off the official research permit.
Okay, let's dive into this next section. Part 3, Inside the Shark Cave, Mapping the Trap.
Picture this. Following their exact path, they descend 50 meters down to the entrance. They move into a large first chamber, push through a really narrow connecting tunnel, and finally enter the second chamber. And right here, natural light vanishes entirely. It is pitch black, and the bottom is coated in this loose, fine sand. And they weren't just dealing with the cave's structure. The conditions that day were notoriously bad. A yellow weather warning was in effect above water, creating rough surface conditions. Below, strong draft currents were literally ripping through these narrow underwater restrictions. Imagine trying to swim against a powerful current while squeezed inside a dark rock tunnel at 60 meters deep. It forces a diver to exert massive energy. Plus, at 60 meters deep, the water pressure compresses your gas so much that every single breath drains your tank nearly 7 times faster than at the surface. It creates immediate, intense confusion.
Which leads us to the most crucial piece of the puzzle. Part 4, the deadly optical illusion, the fatal trigger. So what is an underwater optical illusion? Well, it's this fatal visual misdirection. In a dark cave with floating sand in the water, a side tunnel can visually resemble the main exit tunnel, especially when the real exit disappears into a cloud of haze. It's not a magic trick, guys. It's a deadly combination of disturbed sediment, physics, and profound darkness. Now you might be wondering, how in the world does a dead end possibly look like an exit to an experienced diver? When the divers entered that second chamber, their fins likely kicked up that fine sandy bottom we just talked about. Instantly, the water turned cloudy. When they turned around to leave, the powerful beams of their flashlights simply reflected off the floating silt, creating a blinding wall of white haze right over the real exit tunnel. Disoriented and stressed, they saw a darker passage branching off to the side, completely free of silt. It looked like open water. It looked like safety. So they swam into it. But it was a dead-end tunnel.
Once inside that dead end, panic absolutely would have set in. Actually, I want to make a vital distinction here. The media often says divers ran out of oxygen. But the crucial point is they ran out of usable breathing gas. At 60 meters down, gas is your absolute, irreplaceable ticking clock. Every second spent turning around in a narrow, silty tube, breathing heavily from panic and fighting the current, violently drains the cylinders on their backs. Once that gas is gone in the cave, there is literally no survival.
Part 5. The cost of recovery. A compounding tragedy.
The recovery timeline here is just grim. First, the instructor Gianluca Benedetti was found near the 50-meter entrance. Then, a Maldivian military diver, Muhammad Mahmoudi, bravely went down into those exact same punishing conditions to search for the others. The extreme pressure and depth caused him to suffer severe decompression sickness, which is where lethal nitrogen bubbles form in the bloodstream, and he tragically passed away in the hospital. Only then were highly specialized Finnish tech divers brought in to successfully recover the final 4 bodies from the deepest part of the 60-meter chamber.
It took a vastly different level of equipment just to safely navigate the space to recover the bodies. The Finnish recovery team used closed-circuit rebreathers. These are advanced systems that recycled exhaled breathing gas and used chemical scrubbers to actively remove toxic carbon dioxide. It allowed them to stay at those extreme depths much longer without blowing through standard gas tanks. That highlights exactly how demanding this cave system truly is.
The aftermath really builds this haunting picture of the final moments. Instructor Gianluca Benedetti was actually found near the 50-meter entrance. Whether he separated early or somehow found the right path through the silt, he almost made it out of the cave structure itself. But at 50 meters down, you still have massive decompression obligations. You still need breathing gas to safely ascend to the surface. He was incredibly close to the open ocean, but in an extreme deep water overhead environment, close is simply not enough.
So all of this, the misjudged optical illusion, the mixed experience levels of the team, the missing names on the permit, it leaves us with one glaring final thought. Did the expedition planners above the water truly understand the deadly labyrinth waiting 60 meters below it? A piece of paper does not make a 60-meter cave dive safe. The Shark Cave proved that the deep ocean leaves absolutely zero room for error, and a single moment of disorientation can turn an entire expedition into an inescapable trap. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and remember to always keep questioning the details.